Hi, good morning. Thank you for calling in to this is our last session in the Deploy OS series. This is Rohan's Top 10. Hi, I'm Heather Potson, and here usually you hear me from Philadelphia, but I'm actually up in Toronto today. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Johan Soderstrom.
Hello, everyone.
And we have our special guest. For those who call the Deploy or the Specops support line, you know the voice of Rohan Watkin.
Hello, everyone.
And he is our special guest star along with us today. So let's get started and introduce ourselves for those who might not know us. I'm Heather Potson, one of the product specialists here. Been working in infrastructure for a long time. Some of my hobbies are dancing and traveling and Formula One racing, which I'm getting excited for the Grand Prix of the Americas coming up finally to US in a few weeks. And I also make my own wine. And you can see I am the mother to Harry Potter and Hermione there.
Nice. So my name is Johan Soderstrom. I'm a product specialist at Specops. I have 15 years of experience with deployments. I like to travel to countries. I'm a technology geek, love food and wine, and of course, motorcycles.
So I'll have to send you a bottle of my wine the next time I see you.
Don't drink and drive then.
Once again, my name is Rohan. I'm a product specialist, first line support at Specops. So I probably talked to a bunch of you beforehand. I have about 8 years of experience in the IT field, mainly in Active Directory and Microsoft Exchange. I like football, Miami Dolphins, even though they disappoint me every year. I enjoy drumming, and I really enjoy creating or reading Chuck Norris jokes.
So are we going to get one?
I guess, yeah, Chuck Norris joke is about Chuck Norris chose his parents' name.
That's a really good one.
So now, when you call him to support everyone and you get Rohan on the phone, you can ask him, give me a Chuck Norris joke. One thing interesting, Johan here, being in Toronto, I was walking my hotel last night as the Blue Jays won their baseball game in the World Series. And let me tell you, I wasn't watching the game where I was at dinner, but everyone in the street started cheering and honking, and it was a crazy city. It was kind of exciting.
It's crazy town right now. Blue Jay fever going on. So.
It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, the city's crazy. Crazy with enjoyment. In Philadelphia, when our teams win a game, it's a little bit scarier. So anyway, let's get started with the webinar here. Our agenda for today. Oh, well, actually, I'm sorry. I forgot to do our review week. I'm ahead of myself. So for those of you who have called in the last few weeks, we have been going through different aspects of Deploy OS and app in different levels. If you've missed any of these webinars, everything is online. You can watch it. Feel free to do it. I know a bunch of customers have told me they've gone back and it's been helpful. So everything we do post online. So the way we thought we'd end the series here is have Rohan's top 10. And the agenda for that is, can you flip slides, please? Is his top 10 deploy support issues, because he's the number one guy that knows, what the struggles of our customers are, what he gets common problems and common issues. So we thought a great way to come in and, have discussion based on those top 10 issues that we found. As always, in the end, we're going to have plenty of time for questions and answers. So type them into the lower box. If you have questions about anything we talk about, or if there's anything else with Deploy that we have not addressed today or during any of these webinars, ask away. That's what today's for. We just want to have an open conversation about Deploy. And with that, let's get started with your number 10, Rohan.
Number 10, and drum roll, please. Dirty environment found. That's an error that comes up quite a bit. What would happen there is basically, if you're in the middle of a deployment and somehow it hangs or it doesn't complete, and you want to start another deployment on top of that, that's when I'll have the dirty environment found, all right? So because that first deployment is basically halting your second deployment. So the way you could address this situation is when you have this this error pop up, you'll have the option to reboot and reformat. So you could just press yes by ignoring the progress deployment, or you could just do a reboot and reformat. And you could also do that by pressing the F8 key. It will open up the command line. And you'll be able to put in whatever command line tools you have at your disposal to reboot and reformat.
Yeah, I usually end up doing it the hard way. And if I have a VM, I delete my hard drive and create a new one.
Right.
But yeah, that's a few ways around that because it just, I know, and I find that like, you know, you have a bad deployment, something went off, and then you just try it again and you get this.
Yeah.
Very common one. All right, let's go to number 9.
Application upgrade failures. Okay. With the application upgrade failures, you know what? There's a certain way of doing your application upgrades, and in just a second, Johan's going to demonstrate that for you. All right. I find this coming up quite a bit because some people aren't following the process. All right. So I know we have something up on our website on giving the process on application upgrades. And Johan's going to take it away right now and show you what the process is.
Okay, so let's start it. So I'm going to show you that I'm going to update the problematic Java. Okay, so as you can see here, I'm deploying on Java 7 and also I have a package called Java 8. So all I have to do, if I do everything correctly, just upgrade. So let's hit the GP update. Hopefully everything will work.
There you go.
So as you can see here, you have an installation and an installation.
Excellent. And that is how it's done. Okay.
Yeah, so what about like, I think a lot of times too, I find we get issues that if the application wasn't deployed by deploy and then they go to upgrade it and then it's not managed. And that's, I think, sometimes where I know my customers say they have issues with it.
Well, in that case, you have a script or pre-script to uninstall the older version that you could put into app deploy. Okay. So,
yeah, correct.
So yes, if you run this pre-script and do the uninstall with the pre-script, you'll be able to upgrade to the newer version, even though the older version wasn't managed by app deploy. Okay. So let's continue on to number 8.
All right, what do we have for number 8?
Deploy an app feedback not updating. Okay, so when you're deploying an app, sometimes you will see that there's no feedback coming through. It'll say it's the progress is going towards like say 40 or 50%, and it'll just hang there. What you'd like to do, and what you'd have to do, is check your Specops Deploy app server service. Okay, this is usually the case when there's no app feedback happening. So you just go to the services console and you start it up. And just like Johan's going to show you right now.
Cool. So services, I'm going to stop this service. So see what's going to happen. So everybody can see there is no feedback anymore.
Yep.
So all I have to do is start the service. And there you go. You have the.
All right. So easy. Sometimes it's like the littlest things can fix a big problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so.
All right, should we go to number 7?
Yeah, number 7. Absolutely. Fixing boot issues. You're getting boot problems. Okay, this is a big one. Okay, you may see this. A symptom of it is, for example, an error message coming up saying you can't contact the deployment server, or during deployment it's stuck in sync. When you're trying to publish or you're mounting a boot image, you're getting errors while that's happening. Okay, biggest fix right there is Well, first of all, it's a boot image that's giving you the error, all right? So it's either corrupt boot image or something's wrong in there, okay? So what you'd like to do is to regenerate that boot image in AppT, and you have to re-import the boot image using WDS, into the WDS, right? Johan, once again, my demo friend here, is going to show you a perfect example of how to do that. Take it away, Johan.
Yep, no problem. So open up deployment workbench. As you can see here, first time you open it up, it's empty. So you have to open the deployment share. We have to browse to our Specops folders. And it's very important that everybody can see that it's a deployment repository that we need to mount.
Not the share.
Yes.
Not the share. So when you are here and you can see the deployment share, it says Specops deployment share, but in the end it should say deployment repository. Okay? So in here you can say update. And here you can say completely regenerate the boot images. Okay? That meaning we're going to wipe all the boot images in WDS and it will be regenerated and imported. Okay? But sometimes that will fail. So what are you going to do when it looks like this? You have to import it manually. So we're going to right-click in WDS and say add boot image. We're going to browse to the 64-bit one because as you can see, the 64-bit one is missing. And voila.
That's how it's done.
That's
Nice
how it's
and
done.
easy.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Thank you very much. All right. Like I said, that is a big that's a big issue that comes up quite a bit. So that's very important to know. Thank you again, Johan. So let's move on to number 6. Okay, applications are out of the scope of management. All right. Here's what happens when applications are out of scope of management. Say you have a group policy and your computer's in that group policy that's supposed to have Adobe Reader. As soon as you take that computer out of that group policy, all right, that's when it falls out of scope of management. Now, when that happens, you're going to orphan that deployment. It's not going to be managed anymore, and it's not going to uninstall Adobe. So as soon as you try to put that computer back into that group policy, it's going to try and install Adobe on top of the computer that already has it. All right, that's going to give you the out of scope. That's going to give you errors. It's going to give you orphan deployments. And so the big thing here is if you see that little checkbox down there, uninstall the package if the deployment falls out of the scope of management. That is a big important thing to check off. That small little checkbox could give you a huge headache or could save your day. All right. Once again, Johan's going to give a demo on the out of scope of management. Go ahead.
Yep. As you can see here on my Java, this is the tick box under deployment options. That tick box is very important. If you don't do that, it will be orphaned. So next time when you're gonna deploy an upgrade or something to that machine, it will force an installation on top of that application. So then you can have problems. So make sure you understand this. It's very, very important.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, we're halfway done. So let's see what we have at 5.
Number 5, the timeout when publishing. Okay, of course, publishing could take some time. Sometimes it could go by very quickly. Sometimes it could go by very slowly, depending on what image or what you're publishing, what type of image and the size, and so on and so forth. When you have a timeout when publishing error occur, best thing to do is to increase the timeout period in the registry. Now, I believe the default is a half an hour. And you can change it up to any sort of time, whether it be an hour or 2 hours or even 3 hours, depending on the situation here. Johan will show you where exactly in the registry that is. Go ahead, Johan.
Absolutely. I'm your demo guy. So as you can see here, local machine, software, Specops Soft, Specops Deploy, and here, the admin tools OS, you have the connection timeout. So this means 30 minutes. And we will fix that right now and say, I want to do it 2 hours instead. So 7,200 seconds means 2 hours.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thank you, Johan. Let's see, number 4.
How do I deploy an OS to my tablet? Can I use a dongle for more than one tablet? Actually, you know what? Heather's pretty much the expert in this, so I'm going to hand this over to her to explain to everyone.
All right, I don't know if I'm an expert in this, but I've had my fair share of issues with this, and Johan had to set me straight. So the way it works is, if you have a tablet, you don't have a port to plug in your Ethernet cable, so you can use a dongle. The dongle has its own MAC address. So simple, but yet what the problem comes is people say, well, when you pre-stage, how can you keep pre-staging with the same MAC address? Because after you use a MAC address once, you get that error in AD. So what happens is when you plug in the dongle, you pre-stage with that dongle MAC address, you Pixie boot, you start building it, and it goes great. And what happens is the Pixie filter in WDS actually updates the netboot GUID attribute on the computer object from the MAC address to the netboot GUID ID for the computer objects. So therefore, that MAC address is not hard-coded in the computer account, and then you can therefore go ahead and pre-stage with that dongle again. Now, you can't pre-stage them all in advance. You can't say, I'm going to take these 6 tablets, take that same MAC address, and go across the board. You have to do one at a time and then go.
Yeah, and of course you can also use the dongle to do a default installation also. You don't have to use the reboot and reformat Pixie support. So,
Yes.
but so you can use that. But for the first time, when you pre-stage, yes, you need to have a USB dongle that you can Pixie boot with.
All right, thank you.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very much. So
And
we'll move down to number 3. All right, the deploy app service is not starting. Now, we touched on before on the service that we have to start the service in order for that feedback. Now, here are some of the causes for why the service may fail. First of all, if the service account is taken out of the local admin group, of course, that will cause the service to fail. The deploy app service account needs to be in that local admin group. Also needs to be a database owner of the database. So if there's any SQL permissions that's changed on the service account, that may contribute to the service not starting as well. Now, as well, the service account has to have rights to descendant objects, okay? We go through maybe make sure the accounts do have the rights to descendant objects. If it doesn't have those rights, and that will also cause it to fail as well. It's a pretty easy one. So whenever you see this happening, make sure you check those 3 things out first.
yeah, and especially I actually found with some of my customers when they actually have the SQL database on a separate SQL server and not having SQL Express on their Specops servers, that's when I see that the issues with the service account not having rights to the database comes in more. It's usually when you have the local SQL Express, it doesn't do that. So just if you have your separate database on another server, just keep that in mind if that service doesn't start.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, number 2, we're getting closer to the big one.
All right. Permissions. A lot of times when I get cases coming in, it has to do with permissions, okay? So this is just a broad area in itself. When I say permissions here, you want to make sure that authenticated users, right, in the group policy, they have to have read access for deploy app, okay? You got to make sure the deploy app service account is a local admin, all right? And you also don't want the deploy app service account to be the same as the deploy OS service account, because the OS service account should not be a local admin, all right? You want them to have 2 separate service accounts for 2 separate services, all right? Again, like I said on the last one, number 3, the SQL permissions. You want to make sure that you're the database owner. You want to make sure, the database owner, and it's better just to be the owner of the database as opposed to, just giving read and write access or modify access and going through jumping through hoops here, all right? So it's better just to tag off database owner. There you go. Bob's your uncle, you're good to go.
Yeah, and the app and OS deploy service account, we actually have a blog article for that, and we'll make sure we get everyone the link to that.
Okay.
Yeah, and also
Alright.
make sure that why is the OS deploy service shouldn't be a local admin is because this is built on MDT, and all MDT solutions is actually having that account in clear text. So that's why you shouldn't have that as a local admin. So the
Yeah.
deploy app service is a normal user account in AD, so that's covered, but not OS deploy.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, John. Don't want to be having a clear text password that's a domain admin out there.
No, I have seen that at small customers. So they, if you have a service account as a domain admin, everything works, but it always works for the hacker also to do everything. So it's really, really not good practice to have it as anything else than a normal user.
Most definitely. So, are we ready? We're down to number 1.
Number 1.
Rowan, are you ready? Here it comes. Here it comes. Are you ready?
Is our audience ready? Number 1.
Driver structure. Driver structure. Driver structure. Okay, this is very important. Okay, you want to make sure that you have a proper folder structure for your drivers. If you don't, if anything is off, it's going to screw up your whole deployment. All right, you want to have your make and model folders using WMI names. All right. You want to make sure you use the OS folders, okay? You want to make sure that you have the proper OS name for the proper. Of course, you don't want Windows 7 drivers going into Windows 8.1 or so on or vice versa, right? But you have to name these because if there's any discrepancy between the naming, the conventions of the folders and the naming convention of the computer, it's going to cause an issue. We have a great tool in Deploy OS. It's a test driver lookup tool. And actually, Johan's going to demonstrate its use for you. Go ahead, Johan.
Okay. So as you can see here, this is very, very simple. So we had a case this week with a customer. It was an HP, and all HP desktop and laptops is named Hewlett Packard. But this model, actually, we found out was called HP. So what you can do is actually as you can see here, we do with Dell. So we put in Dell star, okay? But you can put in HP here. So it will hit both Hewlett Packard and HP. So when we did that, it hit actually the make and the model and the OS, okay? So let's see if we can do a drive lookup. So my machine is called Foxtrot. So let's do a Foxtrot 2 lookup. So this little cool tool is really, really good. As you can see here, it's the make, it's a Microsoft Corporation. The model is a virtual machine. And what do you want to test? I want to test the Windows 7 operating system. As you can see, this is only testing. So as you can see here, it hits Microsoft Corporation, it hits the virtual machine, and it hits the Windows 7 OU, or folder, I mean. This means it will be covered. The drivers will be downloaded to that machine during installation. So use this test driver lookup computer. You need to have a machine live in the environment to get this to work with WMI and things like that. But it's a very handy little tool, this test driver lookup for computers.
Absolutely. Yeah. It'll save you a huge headache, guys.
Yeah, anyone that's ever done an install or proof of concept with me, that's the one thing, I go over the driver folder, look up, query the computer. It's the best way to go. I mean, you're setting yourself up for success. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and also make sure also when you do this, you actually use this new child make folder from computers. When you install Specops for the first time, it will be blank. And then you can build from your own driver structure from your own machine. So if you have HP, you will end up having HP folder structure with different models in here. So you do it twice. First make the first time, so you have, in this case, Dell, and then you will use it for models. So this is really, really cool to do it live. Then you don't have to worry about the spelling mistakes and things. You need to have capital letters and small letters and spaces exactly right. Otherwise, it will not work.
Awesome.
All right, thank you. And then Rohan, I think you have a final bit of advice for everyone out here.
Okay, biggest bit of advice: publish, publish, publish your changes, okay? It's basically like writing down something very important in a Word document and not saving it, right? If you don't publish any of your changes that you make, it's not going to be applied. And I find that this is something that's it's overlooked quite a bit, all right? So we all know how it is. We're working on something, we find out there's an error, and we're pulling our hair out, grinding our teeth, trying to figure out what the issue is, and we realize we didn't publish the changes, all right? Something very simple. So that's my biggest piece of advice, guys. Make sure you publish, make sure you save it, all right?
All right, thank you, Rohan. So now, is it my favorite time? Johan, can you hit the slide, please? Questions and answers. So thank you, everyone. I see some questions starting to come in. Feel free to ask away. We will get to them all. First question. Any plans for Specops to include a built-in client reboot panel prompt for app deploy? Because some apps that we deploy may require reboot after successful installation, and we prefer not to force a computer reboot. All right, I believe for this one, and Johan, I may need your help. I think we do have under the packages, don't they have a few options that we can select how to handle the client reboots? Because I don't believe we force.
No, absolutely not. So you can actually, it's actually the package that will decide this. So if it's an MSI package, we can actually enforce the machine to reboot during installation. So it's more or less, up to the package. And then if you really want a reboot, then you can actually force it with our product. So the package is the one who decides, and we can decide a little bit more if you really, really want a reboot.
All right, thank you. All right, we have another question coming in from Dave. Any update on app deploy release for Windows 10? And for once, I'm very happy to get this question. I know every week I keep telling you guys, soon, soon, soon. But now, Deploy for both app and OS will be released on October 20th for full support for Windows 10. So look for that. Yes, yay. So Rohan is going to begin probably lots of phone calls. Yeah. But so we're excited. So next week, October 20th, we will have the version of Deploy 6.0 is coming out, and it will support Windows 10 for OS and app deploy. And stay tuned for more information about upgrade processes and that kind of good stuff. So exciting time to hear that.
Actually, Johan and I got the tested deployment of Windows 10 OS through OS Deploy yesterday. We tested successfully, all right? So I'm pretty excited about this. I know a lot of people have been waiting around for this. So thank you for your patience.
Yeah, and for once, I know every week when we do this, I get a lot of questions, and I always feel bad saying soon. But everything, all the pieces lined up, the stars aligned. Our developers did a bang up job. The PS team has been testing it internally, and we are actually running it internally. Johan had set it up for the company, and we've deploy production laptops out and stuff with Windows 10. Johan is running on Windows 10, right, Johan?
Absolutely.
Yes, so good stuff there coming up. All right, let's see, what else do we have here going on? Colleen is asking, often I find out when I go to do a deployment for OS, my WDS is not working. Then I end up having to reboot. What is a good way to check to see what's going on with that? Well, that's an easy one. I usually just look and see if it's offline, because that happens to me.
Absolutely. We just check to see if it's offline and start up the services. So, I've seen that happen too. And you know what? There's some people panic or so forth. Like, relax, you want to calm down. It's probably just offline. Just start it up again. You're good to go.
Good to go.
All right.
And you can see you can see that in the OS admin tool if it's offline. So our tool is really good to point that out to the admin. So it's really
to do that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Thomas is asking why I find often that my OS admin console does not update. What's going on with that? Because it doesn't seem like it's in real time. Do you want to answer that, Rohan?
When your admin console is not updating? Well, basically, you want to refresh the screen. And it also depends on where you're opening it up from. Okay, so if you're opening it up from the remote machine, or if you're opening it up from the server as well, because there's going to be some sort of maybe there's some sort of lag issues. so on and so forth. So those would be the first things I'd check right then. You have anything else to add?
No, it's typically, sometimes refresh it up in the corner. It really has various reasons for that. But most of the time I find it's just a few seconds behind. And then once you hit that refresh screen, it tends to update with that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So
our admin tool also support F5. So hit F5, that meaning refresh also. So F5 or refresh in the corner.
So, okay, thank you. So next question coming in is coming from Liz. Let's see, how long does it take to deploy an image? How about you answer that one, Rohan?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the size of the image. It depends on the network. What type of speed you have going on throughout your network. It's hard to answer that question. Okay, I've seen the image deploy and take maybe about an hour. Mm-hmm. Sometimes a bit less, sometimes a lot more. It depends on your environment. Depends on the size of your image. Okay?
So, all right, thank you.
And the average speed in the average network, I would say around 30 minutes. Right. That's more or less a standard. So I've seen customers deploying XP in 7 minutes. But XP is old now. The images is bigger. So I would say around half an hour to an hour.
Okay.
So, thank you. All right. Jeffrey has typed in a question asking, I missed your webinar on capturing. Really sorry I did that one, but do you have any brief advice on how to capture? Because I know I've seen some of your blog articles and not sure what the best method to do that. Well, Jeffrey, just so you know, you can go back and rewatch it. We do have it, but I am going to let Rohan address your question here.
Okay, well, I would say we always recommend that you capture from a VM, okay, not from a physical box. You want to capture from a VM. And you want to capture a base image from a VM that has basically, we're going to call it a flat one, I believe is the term is, a flat or a thin image. With a flat image, that means there's no antivirus on there. If you have an antivirus, that may interrupt your capturing and deployment there. You want to have no programs on that either. Like I said, you want to capture something, you want to capture an OS image and have that image have nothing on it and then deploy your apps after that. Okay, so you want to make it as easy as possible. If you don't do that, you're going to run into many issues, and they either be driver issues or program compatibility issues, or like I said, antivirus may be stopping you from deploying that image as well.
All right, thank you. Now, Matthew is wondering, how big is an image?
That depends.
Rohan, yeah.
That depends, Matt. Just like it depends on how long it takes to deploy an image. That depends on how big your image is. All right. So, like I said, you want to keep it as thin as possible, as flat as possible. So you want to make sure you don't have your antivirus and programs in there. So it's as small as possible to capture and deploy.
All right, thank you. And one last question coming in from Johan. Johan, that's not you typing in, is it? There's another one out there.
No, it's not me.
It's not you. Yeah, I guess we have multiple people there. Common name, right? He wants to know if we can deploy Office with App Deploy. Rohan.
Absolutely, you can. All right, you can deploy Microsoft Office with App Deploy. That's not a problem. In fact, I believe we may have some sort of a walkthrough on our website.
Yes, we do.
Don't quote me on that, but if you want to find out, you just call into the support line at any time, or you give me an email or open up a case. I'll be happy to help you.
Yes, we actually do have directions for Office 2013 on the website. We're just starting to test with 2016, but I'm sure that will be a blog article in the making from one of us or our colleagues. So.
Absolutely.
All right, some resources we have out here from today. Can you hit the slide, Johan? So here's a list of blog articles from the PS team that we have out there that covers a lot of the topics that we talked about today. We will make sure that this gets emailed out to all of you so you can reference it as you're out there happily deploying in apps and OSs and all that good stuff. And coming up in the future, fear not, just because our Deploy series ended. Can you hit the next slide, Johan? We are not done with webinars. We have a few more schedules coming up. Big one, November 5th. We're going to talk about deploying Specops Deploy 6.0, how to upgrade your Deploy to Deploy 6.0. because especially OS Deploy will have a few steps involved. So please attend that. And we'll talk about deploying Windows 10. I know everyone's been waiting for that. Extremely excited that that webinar finally will be happening, that we have it going on. So come, especially if you're going to be planning on upgrading Deploy, please attend, and we will be talking about that. And then November 19th, we are going to be having a webinar on Specops self-service portal. So if you're a customer of App Deploy and using that and haven't seen Portal yet, interested and curious about Portal, there's a lot of great stuff you can do with that. So be on the lookout, and hopefully everyone here attend again. I want to thank our special guest star, Rohan, here.
Thank you.
It's nice to have another voice with us.
Thank you.
And as always, Johan, thank you for your great demos. And
Thank you, Heather.
And you should have thank you, Heather, for talking.
We're all patting each other on the back.
And thank you, wonderful audience, for all your questions and calling in. We have a good time. It's fun for us PSs to do this. So we hope that we can keep them going. And any ideas to the audience that you might have for things you'd like to see in a webinar, please send in your ideas. We'd love to hear from you, because we're more than happy to give you what you need. So have a good day, everybody.
Yep.
Take care.
Happy deployments. Bye.
Happy deployment. Bye-bye.